I'm Andrea Giles, and you're listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, episode 77, Hold On to Yourself. Hello, and welcome to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, where courageous women learn not only to heal from their spouse's betrayal, but to become the boldest, truest, most decisive, and confident versions of themselves ever. If you know there's more for you than the life you're currently living, but don't quite know how to get there, you are in the right place. Stick around to learn how to create a life that will knock your own socks off. Is it possible? It is, and I'm here to show you how. I'm your host, Andrea Giles. Are you ready? Let's dive in. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope that you are feeling like you are moving forward in your life and making progress. And this episode today is going to speak to that. It's going to speak to making progress. I'm going to dive into that. All of the episodes are really, right? But I'm going to specifically talk about holding on to yourself as a means of growth. Before I do that, I want to say thank you again for your reviews. Thank you for taking the time to write about your experience with this podcast. First of all, I love reading what you write. It just makes me so happy. It's so heartwarming to know how this work has helped you, how it's helped you to heal, how it's helped you to move forward. It makes it all worth it. So thank you. And it helps other people to read your reviews, to say, this might be worth my time, and go listen and get other people help too. So truly, by leaving reviews, you are helping other people. Okay, one more quick item of business before I dive into this week's episode. So I am back at work, and I have had people reaching out about working with me. And where I'm at right now is I am going to be launching a group program very soon. It's going to be incredible. I love working in groups, like being a participant in groups and learning from other people. And I love leading groups. I had a group last year that I worked with that was wonderful. And I am now shifting from, I'm doing less and less one-on-ones and doing more groups to be able to help more people. My demand for one-on-one has gotten to where I can't accommodate all of it with my time. And so I am going to be doing groups. And I think it's time for groups. They're a wonderful way to heal, being in the same room with other people that are going through the same thing. So keep your eye out. If you're not on my email list yet, go get on it, because I will be dropping information about my group in there. And you can go find me at andreagiles.com and get on my list there. And anyway, I will still keep a few one-on-one spots open down the road, but they're going to be very limited. So, okay, now let's move on to the actual podcast. Okay, so today we're talking about holding on to yourself. Now, I've mentioned before that I have a process of podcasting. It's kind of how I find what I'm going to podcast about. It's like this. I find themes that I hear in clients again and again and again, often in one day. It's so interesting to me to see how in one day I will find myself coaching on the exact same things with people who don't know each other. Another thing that draws me to do different episodes, to cover different episodes, is when I personally have things that I want a better understanding of, so that I can embody that thing, so that I can step more fully into that thing, and then I can become a better teacher of it to my clients, to my listeners. This particular episode is in that category. So I've mentioned before that the last couple months have been pretty tough. I am in a space where there's just a lot of change, and it's not just with the baby. It's not just with having a baby. It's kind of like an undoing, an unraveling, an unpacking of some things that have been there for a long time, some things that have been set in motion towards a path that has not been particularly healthy or helpful as a family, as a whole family unit. And so my husband and I both are doing unpacking, and our kids are doing unpacking. There have been lots of things that have been brought to our attention that need attention. And so this episode is kind of naming what my own process is as much as it is naming your own process. Okay. So, what I'm going to be speaking about today is part one of what I'm going to be covering over the next several weeks. I'm going to be covering some aspects of growth that are absolutely essential to constructing a life that you really want to be in, that you're really proud of, that you really feel solid in. Okay. So, in the next at least 3 weeks, maybe more as I develop out the next episodes, I'm going to be talking about different aspects of holding on to yourself. I'm going to be teaching about self-control. I'm going to be teaching about high desire, low desire. Okay. That's not just in sexual ways. This is other ways that shows up in relationships. I'm going to be talking about seeing yourself as you really are. So hang with me over the next month or so as I dive in more deeply to all of the aspects of holding on to yourself, at least some of the aspects. But for today, I'm going to talk about what that actually means. What does holding on to yourself mean? Okay, so first of all, where did I learn this concept? I'll tell you where I learned this concept. So a couple years ago, I attended a live retreat hosted by a therapist named Jennifer Finlayson Fife. It was amazing. I learned a ton, and it really helped kind of shape many of my ideas that I have developed out with my own coaching. I was a fairly new coach at this point, and it really helped me. You know what? As I think about it, it's going to be 3 years this May already. It'll be 3 years. But it helped me kind of put words to some of the thoughts that I had, some of the things that I felt. And one of the concepts she taught was holding on to yourself. Now, she was taught by a therapist named David Schnarch. And David Schnarch was a pioneer in relationships, particularly in marriage. And she studied under him and used this term regularly in the things that she taught. And if you go back a few episodes, I had Jennifer on my podcast talking about infidelity. She's amazing. Go follow her, go learn from her. She's amazing. Anyway, holding on to yourself basically is the ability to stay in integrity with yourself, to stay self-regulated, to stay self-soothing, especially in some kind of confrontation when things could go south quickly. So today, what I'm going to cover is I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on what that means to hold on to yourself. Actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means not to first, okay? And then I'm going to talk about what it means to hold on to yourself and how to develop that out. And then over the next several weeks, I will be going into more detail with more clear instruction about how to develop out your ability to hold on to yourself. So, first of all, I'm going to be using as a reference, it's a book by David Schnarch called Passionate Marriage. So I'll be pulling some from his book. And I also am going to be talking about myself, talking about clients, and sharing some real examples that hopefully will help you. Okay. So at the very beginning of one of the chapters, there's a quote by somebody named Rainer Maria Rilke. It says, "If only we arrange our life according to that principle, which counsels us that we must always hold to the difficult, then which now still seems to us the most alien will become what we most trust and find most faithful." Okay, rewind that if you need to listen to it again. To sum it up, it basically means that we go into life thinking that the things that are good for us are the things that are easy, the things that don't give us a lot of struggle. And what this quote is it's the opposite is true. What if we put more faith in the difficult things than on the easy things? What if we trust the difficult more than the easy? And what if those are the things that actually help us the most to become who we are? Now, as I was preparing this episode, I thought about my experience in my first marriage and how guilty I am of what I'm about to say. Okay. How many of you listening have been to therapy, have been to a coach, done different work, thinking this will be the thing? This will be the thing that's going to change my relationship. And by change my relationship, it's change my spouse. This will be the thing. They'll change. This is going to be it, right? And even in one-on-one, like even when it's personal for you, we can learn like tips and tools and tricks that we can go use to have the conversation that will maybe go a little different this time. Okay. But it's missing something super important. It's like, I'm going to go around the actual issue. I'm going to skirt around it. I'm going to avoid it by going and learning these tools, having these conversations, but I'm going to avoid the hard work of like myself, of going over the mountain, right? Instead, I'm going to go around it and find the shortcuts. Okay. Really knowing yourself, really growing into the person that you have the right to be requires doing the work. Okay. It requires doing the work. So I'm going to read you this quote from this book. Few of us enter into therapy to change ourselves. We are usually seeking ways to change our situation or our spouse while we remain the same. We seek out simple tips, techniques, and benedictions that tell us how to communicate and be compassionate. Read easy ways to feel understood and receive compassion. The underlying message of any therapeutic technique is apply this properly and your problem will dissolve. But techniques can't dissolve interpersonal problems. Only changes in us can do that. Ooh, let me say that again. Techniques can't dissolve interpersonal problems. Only changes in us can do that. Okay. So this doesn't mean that we have to be so excited to change that we just have to change ourselves before we can be acceptable. That's not what I mean. Okay. It's more of recognizing that to become who we really want to be, it's an inside job. Okay. There is no shortcut. There is no way around. And the beautiful thing here is if you think of it like climbing to the top of a mountain, some of us want to take the shortcut. If my spouse would just do this and this and this, then I would just like miraculously land on top of this mountain, right? The problem with this is that in doing this, you are missing the opportunity for you yourself to get yourself to the top of the mountain and be the hero. You're missing that. How sad is that? Okay, you're missing the opportunity to be your own hero. You're wanting your spouse to be the hero. You're wanting these tools that are outside of you to be the hero. But really, the work we're talking about is the work of growing up, which is the end result of being at the top of the mountain and going through the struggle and process of growing up, owning it all, taking ourselves to the top of that mountain. That is self-mastery. That is holding on to yourself. Okay. We are not outsourcing it. Now, another thing you've heard me say before is that infidelity can be quite an opportunity for this particular kind of growth, climbing to the top of a mountain and truly becoming your own hero. This is a moment that can shake our very foundation, right? All the things that we thought we knew somehow seem to be obliterated. We feel higher anxiety, which can bring up other things that we already thought that we had worked through, really shaking us, right? So this is an opportunity to learn at a deeper level how to get to the top of that mountain, how to be your own hero by holding on to you. Okay, so if we continue on with this analogy of climbing a mountain, I'm going to read to you something that this book says. It says, if you feel in control of yourself rather than trying to control the terrain and weather, you can relax and enjoy the climb. When you're tense and feeling out of control, the climb seems far more difficult. It helps if you keep in mind that you never really master the mountain. You master yourself in the process of climbing the mountain. The mountain remains the same. It is you who changes. And remember, you have to climb several mountains before you feel confident of yourself, but you can't wait until you feel safe and secure before you venture out for your first climb. Okay, so in this book, David Schnarch said that some of his clients actually coined this phrase of holding on to yourself to sum up self-mastery and self-control. But basically, what it means to hold on to yourself is learning about yourself, confronting yourself, and shifting to self-validated intimacy. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And taking care of yourself. Learning to hold on to yourself nudges your personal development and your marriage forward and fundamentally changes how you and your partner interact. Now, keep in mind that there are some of you listening who are not married. There are some of you listening who will use these tools to decide you no longer want to be married, or some of you who are not sure and making that decision. It's okay. I promise you, this work will serve you where you are now and in the future. Nothing is lost here. Okay. So here are some things that have to be a part of holding on to yourself. Number one, maintaining a clear sense of who you are as you become increasingly intimate with a partner who is increasingly more important to you. Knowing what you value and believe and not defending a false or inaccurate self picture. Okay, that one I want to just go into detail a little bit. Okay, so oftentimes we think of this defending this picture, this false or inaccurate self picture, as defending parts of ourselves that might be kind of like traits that might be coined or termed negative that we really just want to put a positive spin on. I think that the opposite is also true. I think sometimes we hide our amazing traits from our partners. I think sometimes we water them down. It reminded me when I was preparing this of something that someone said to me so long ago that I've not been able to forget. When I was like 19, I spent the summer opening up a store, Circuit City, if any of you have heard of Circuit City, opening up this brand new store in an area of Salt Lake City called Sugar House. And I worked with a bunch of guys. And one of those guys, one time he said something to me that I was being falsely humble, false humiliation. And all these years, it kind of stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, huh? What does that mean? And as I have lived several more years and learned more about myself, I think what I was doing is rather than allowing myself to receive a compliment, I was like rejecting it and being like, no, it's okay. I'm not really that good at that. Something like that. Okay. So part of holding on to yourself is knowing what your strengths are and letting them shine, letting them be seen, and not trying to defend a false or inaccurate self-picture, the things that we see that are positive or negative. Number two, maintaining a sense of perspective about your anxieties, limitations, and shortcomings so they neither drive you nor immobilize you. Okay, so you've heard me talk before about certain emotions and how they can get behind the wheel of your car and take you to places you don't necessarily want to go. So, for example, let's talk about anxiety. Okay, you may be somebody that experiences anxiety. I have at different times. I know how debilitating it can be. So, with maintaining a sense of perspective about your anxiety, what this means is that you might recognize I am somebody that experiences anxiety and it's just coming along for the ride, right? It's giving it a seat in your car without letting it drive your car. And it's not judging it for being there. That's a huge piece of that it's like, yes, this is just part of my package. Anxiety is part of the deal. Maybe it won't be in the future, but it is right now. And we're not hating on it for being there. That's part of this perspective. We're just carrying it along. It gets to come along. Next, the willingness to engage in self-confrontation, necessary for your growth. This includes standing up to your fears, taking the hits about yourself, meaning if somebody says to you something that's hard to hear, taking it, challenging it, not challenging it, asking if it's true, and then maybe challenging it if it's not true. Okay. Your family of origin, your marriage, and your life, confronting your own selfishness, hatred, manipulation of others, sadism, withholding, and self denigrations, and resisting your attempts to avoid yourself. Ouch, right? Who wants to look at those things? Not me. I don't want to know. But it is in looking at those things, it is in telling ourselves the truth that we grow, that we grow. It's knowing ourselves. We're confronting those things. Why am I this way? Where did this come from? Okay. Next is acknowledging your projections and distortions and admitting when you are wrong, whether or not your partner does likewise. Ooh, that's kind of hard, huh? It's so much easier when our partners are doing the same things that we are at the same pace that we are, but they often aren't. They're often either at a different pace or sometimes they're not into this work when we are, right? Hopefully they are trying to grow, but sometimes they're not. Okay. So you're acknowledging your projections, your distortions. You're looking at how you are reading something that they're doing and making it mean whatever you're making it mean. Okay. You're looking at how you're blaming them for your behaviors that you don't love. Okay. Looking at all of those things. And the last one, tolerating the pain involved in growing, mobilizing yourself toward the growth you value and aspire to, soothing your own hurts when necessary without excessive self-indulgence, and supporting rather than berating yourself. How many of you tend to go to berating yourself instead of supporting yourself? Oh, it may sound like a subtle difference, but oh, what a difference, right? What a difference in the outcome between berating yourself and supporting yourself. So you're looking at, you're tolerating the growth. You're looking at the things that need to change. You're mobilizing yourself towards those change instead of just sitting in self-pity and self-indulgence. And you are supporting and loving yourself rather than berating yourself. So holding on to yourself, if you're hearing all of those things, is not an easy task to do, right? But the benefits that you will receive from this are massive. Okay, massive. You will grow so much in your respect for yourself. You'll grow so much in your ability to stand tall and support yourself in any situation you find yourself in, whether it be like the bully at the PTA meeting or in a church setting where you need to speak up for something that you believe in without being made to shrink. This is really, really important work. Okay. So a huge part of this I want to talk about is how learning to hold on to yourself is such a key part of breaking patterns in relationships, whether it be with your spouse or anybody else. Could be your mother, your mother-in-law, a sister, anybody. Okay. David Schnarch says it lets you break the set of your communications, habitual topics, patterns, intensity, and tone. Instead of matching your partner's feelings and emotional tone when you're locked in protracted arguments, bad feelings, or flaring tempers, holding on to yourself allows you to break free of this form of emotional gridlock called negative affect reciprocity. I can say it. Reciprocity. Got it. Okay. Holding on to yourself means you don't go down with your partner when he or she becomes depressed, despondent, and hopeless. Another way to put it that my husband and I talk about is that the work that we're going through right now is kind of like a roller coaster. There's some days where he's on that wild roller coaster and I'm not. There's some days when I am and he's not. And holding on to yourself means if your spouse is on this wild roller coaster, you don't have to get on with them. Okay. You don't have to get on. You don't have to abandon them while they're on this roller coaster. You can observe, you can see their excitement or their fear or their exhilaration or their panic, but you don't have to climb up there and get on it with them. Okay. That's what this means. You can show that you care without engaging in the same emotion, like matching the same emotion. Okay. I remember in my first marriage, a pattern I had is he was often anxious and worked up. And I remember feeling like I needed to be at that place too, like kind of buying into his story to show that I cared. It's not funny. That's what I thought, that I needed to like match his emotion and energy level to show that I cared. And that brought much more instability to our marriage than stability. Being with yourself, staying with yourself stabilizes your relationship. It stabilizes it. Something that we tend to do if we're not holding on to ourselves, if we aren't separate from our spouse, is either become really reactive, right? Or become indifferent and completely pull away, disengage, back off. Schnarch says, when you have a firm hold on yourself, you can allow yourself to be influenced by your spouse and others while at the same time remaining resilient to pressure to conform when it's against your better judgment or feelings. Having a solid but permeable self allows you to take others into account. There is room for your spouse's reality without losing your own. You can be interested in his position during arguments rather than trying to dispute it. Okay, this next piece, I think I've had to really think about and wrap my head around, and I hope that I can articulate it well. Okay, so holding on to yourself permits true mutuality. Okay, mutuality is compromise for the greater good. So let's say that your spouse wants something and you don't want that thing, and you not wanting that thing is kind of an immediate gratification response. Okay. So let's say he wants to go to one place and you want to go to another place for like a trip. Okay. And you're feeling like, if I give in to him, then this comes at a cost to me. And I don't get that immediate personal gratification of going to this place that I want to go. Now, when we are in a space of holding on to ourselves, we engage in this kind of mutuality where we are compromising for the greater good based on the deeper values and meaning that we place on our relationship and who we want to be in our relationship. Okay. So often you might be sacrificing your own prerogative, your own little, your own immediate personal gratification, but it is for the bigger purpose of growing this marriage, and that matters more to you than the immediate gratification. Now, it doesn't mean you're the one always making the compromises. It could be that next time you get to go where you want to go. This can be really gratifying, but you have to be able to self-soothe and calm yourself at the feeling of loss that you might experience for the greater good of your relationship. Okay, so in a nutshell, holding on to yourself is this ability to stabilize yourself, to keep yourself stable in the heat of the moment. Okay, when things are in front of you, where you could shrink, where you could puff up, where you can hide, where you can disappear, where you can cave to what they're saying, where you can cave to past behaviors that you have engaged in. Okay. Like, for example, if you have a habit of not thinking you're worth much, of not thinking that you're worth being listened to, holding on to yourself means remembering your worth. It means remembering that you also get a vote. And when we shrink and go back to those old patterns, we are not holding on to ourselves. We're letting go of ourselves. So, as I said earlier on, I'm going to be touching on many aspects of holding on to yourself and what it actually looks like. David Schnarch talks about this process as a crucible. A crucible is a hard test. That's what a crucible means. It's something that's a hard test. And there's a reason why it's called a crucible. It's not easy. This work is not easy, okay? It requires strength. It requires resilience. But guess what? You're going to build more strength and more resilience in doing this work. And it's one of those things that will climb a mountain and get to the top of a mountain only to look over and see that there's another mountain to climb. It's ongoing. And the more that we learn how to do these things, how to hold on to ourselves, it will make it so much easier to climb those other mountains, to stay with ourselves, to not lose who we are, to show up for ourselves in love and compassion and maintain our own strength. Okay. One last thing before I go is that sometimes when I find myself in a situation where it'd be easy for me to slip to old ways or to give into anxiety or things like that, I do this simple thing, and I want you to try it with me. I just put my hand on my heart. I just put my hand on my heart. And sometimes what I think in my mind is, I'm feeling anxious and it's okay. I'm feeling anxious and I'm okay. Or if it's some other emotion, I'm feeling scared. I'm okay. It's okay. It's okay that I feel scared. I still got me. I'm still with me. I'm still hanging with me. I'm okay. I want you to practice that. Putting your hand on your heart, naming what you're feeling, and making a statement to yourself that it's okay that you're feeling that way and that you're safe. You can even say, and I'm safe. Okay, that's part of holding on to yourself. Okay, that's what I've got for you this week. In the next few weeks, we're going to be going into much more detail about different elements of this, and we'll all just be pros by the end. Doesn't that sound fun? All right, thank you, my friends. I love that you're here, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast. If you would like to be kept in the know about upcoming free classes, new podcast episodes, and other ways of working with me, go subscribe to my weekly email. You can subscribe at andreagiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. Again, it's andreagiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. I will see you next time.